This video provides a general introduction to Automation Anywhere's A2019 Workbench. A2019's Workbench consists of 5 areas of functionality. One of the areas of functionality is hidden from view until it is needed. The first area you probably notice is the Workbench itself. Here we can see that the start and end commands were automatically loaded onto our Workbench when we created our bot. We can also see prompts on our Workbench. The first prompt is to drag a trigger here. Triggers are events or conditions that would kick off or start an automated task. Events could be time dependent, basically telling the bot to perform the automated task at a particular time. For example, if I tracked my time spent by client in an Excel spreadsheet, and then I had to upload the details of the Excel spreadsheet to a company-provided time management system each Friday, then I would want to set a time-dependent trigger to start a bot that automates the process of extracting the information from the Excel spreadsheet and populating the appropriate fields in the company-provided time management system every Friday afternoon. Triggers could also be dependent on folders or files. Each of these triggers would tell a bot to perform a task when something changes with the file or folder. For example, you could add a trigger which tells the bot to begin a process when a file is added to a folder or the folder size reaches a certain limit. You could also add a trigger that tells one bot to run after another bot has finished running. There are many other options with respect to automating the process through triggers, such as triggers that depend on emails, databases, or window criteria. Again, triggers are particularly useful when you want to automate a process instead of having to remember to start a bot at a certain time or after a certain task. We find our Triggers menu on the left-hand side underneath the Actions menu. To open the Triggers menu, click once, and then you can find the options that you have. You can expand or collapse options by clicking once on the title, and then you would find the trigger that you want, and you would either click on it and drag it over, or you could double click to add it to your Workbench. If you no longer need the trigger, then you can go ahead and click on the vertical ellipses and delete the trigger from your Workbench. Our second prompt on our Workbench is to drag an action here. Actions are commands. They tell the bot what tasks to perform. We can see our action menu if we click on the word actions on the left-hand side. We can see that our actions are sorted alphabetically to help us quickly find the actions that we're looking for. And if we use the scroll bar here, we can see that we have a wide variety of actions that we can select in A2019. Some of the actions are categorized by task, such as comment, where we would add a comment, and if statements, where we would tell the bot to only perform a task if a certain condition is met. We could also see these categorizations used for things like prompts or playing sounds. Other actions are categorized by program, such as a CSV or text file, which helps us deal with CSV and text files. The Excel, which has both the options for basic and advanced Excel commands, and Office 365, where we can deal with the Office 365 products. Finally, actions may be categorized based on common computer programs and languages, such as Python, SAP, and if we scroll down a little bit further, VBScript. We move on our actions onto the Workbench by double-clicking on the desired action. So I'll demonstrate that with the CSV Text Commands. We first need to open up the menu, then we would select the command that we would want, likely to open the file since this is the first time we're doing it. And then we could either drag the action on, or we could double-click to move the action onto the menu. Later on, I'll show you how to determine the order of your action on your Workbench, either by adding it or reordering the action after you've started it. In general, the order of an action is very important, as a bot will move in sequence or stepwise fashion through your commands. Thus, if you tell the bot to read data from a file before you have told the bot to open the file, then the bot cannot read data from the file that you want because it doesn't have the file open. Once an action is added to the Workbench, we now see our configuration pane open. We will need to configure the action to tell the bot exactly what to do. The configuration is specific to the task. So if we've added the action which tells the bot to open a CSV or text file, then it makes sense that in the configuration pane, we have to tell the bot where it can find the file, and then we want to tell the bot some details about the file, such as whether it contains a header row, how it's delimited, and then also whether we want it to trim leading and trailing spaces, and what encoding the file has. All of these configuration options will be explained more fully in later videos. We can hide the configuration pane by finding the thicker blue line in the middle of the configuration pane and the workbench. And when we hover over it, we'll see a right-hand arrow appear. If we click once on that, then we will hide the configuration pane. We could also bring the configuration pane back into view by finding again that thicker line and then waiting to see a left-hand arrow, and clicking once will bring that configuration pane back into view. The final menu option on the left-hand side is the variables menu. Variables are particularly useful in bot programming because they allow you to capture values, whether it be string, number, date, time, whatever, that are commonly used by different tasks, nodes, or other bot elements. For example, in this case, we will use variables to execute the following task. We will read data into our text file and assign it to a table variable, effectively converting our text file into a table that the bot sees the same way that we might see it if we had opened the table in an Excel spreadsheet. We then read the data one row at a time, assigning the data for each column to particular variables. If the data is identified as coming from a particular state, we then tell the bot to write the data from the variable into the column of a CSV file. Since the data is assigned row by row, the variable is replaced each time a new row of data is read. If we didn't use variables, then we would have to program the bot to specifically assign the data from each column and row for each row of data that is read and written. This would become cumbersome quickly. Unlike our actions, we do not move variables onto our workbench directly. Instead, variables are added to our workbench when we configure our actions. Beyond the workbench and the left-hand menus, we can also see the options to change the look of our workbench. The default workbench view is the flow view, which is a GUI-based view. What that basically means is there's going to be a little icon for every action that we place onto the workbench. We can change the view of our workbench from the flow view to the list view by clicking on the word list at the top of our workbench. The list view is convenient as it will not only list the command, but show the configurations of the command on the same line. This condensed view can be particularly useful when your code starts to get longer. This view will also be useful when the instructions tell you that the command should appear on a particular line, because now we can see the line that it appears on the left-hand side of the action command. Notice the start and end commands do not have line numbers. I'm going to demonstrate the case using the list view. You could see both the flow and the list views at the same time using the dual view. Here, the flow view will appear on the left pane of the workbench, and then the list view would appear on the right pane. If you have a big enough screen, this can be convenient, but as you can see, when I add the configuration pane, it can get a little bit crowded if you're on a small screen like my Surface. The final area of functionality is found in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Here, we can save the bot. We could run the bot using the run command. If you have to debug the bot, then you have the debug option up here as well. Finally, the analyze command will allow us to see the dashboard that's created when we use the analyze actions. The run and debug commands require you to save the bot before they're functional. The analyze command will only display the information in your dashboard after you've run a bot with the analyze, open, and close actions as part of your workflow. While working in the bot, you want to remember to save often because the bot does not automatically save. It would be awful, though not unheard of, if you spent several hours programming a bot only to lose your program because you didn't save and the power went out.